Here we are again in the summer Psalms. It's finally starting to heat up in Texas, but the Psalms are so sweet and so good. I think you're really going to enjoy this little snippet from God's Word today on this hot summer day. I'm Pastor Scott, and I'm glad you're tuning in. Let's talk about Psalm 30. Now, we talked about on the weekend Psalm 27, a psalm of hope. And then in between the psalm of hope and then the next psalm, a psalm of forgiveness, which I'll talk about next Sunday, we find a couple of psalms that are really impactful. They'll really make a big difference. And one of them is Psalm 30. Psalm 30, let me kind of set this up. Psalms are not written in the chronological order of the events of life. They're kind of placed in at different spots. And Psalm 30 is kind of lifted out of the pages of history and dropped in here. Dropped in from where David was running from King Saul in the wilderness, and then he became king. And then as he became king, he created a problem from everybody for his arrogance. So what we're going to talk about today on this Monday and Friday, the Lanyap, is going to kind of be commingled about arrogance and pride. He writes Psalm 30 because God has just pulled his fat out of the fire. Now, some of y'all know what I mean by that you've done things, that you mess things up, and then God comes along and he rescues you. Well, what David did in his arrogance and pride, he wanted to take a census of the nation. He wanted to boast about his numerical advance, his civilization advance. And so he did that, and it did not please God. And God sent a plague, and many people died during this plague. And finally, David pled to the Lord, and the Lord stopped the plague. And then he wrote this psalm. I want to read it for you, then I want to make just a few observations that you could discuss in your group time. Here's Psalm 30. I will exalt you, Lord, because you have lifted me up. You have not allowed my enemies to triumph over me. Lord, my God, I cried to you for help, and you healed me. You brought me up from Sheol, and that's another word for the afterlife or hell or Hades. You brought me up from Sheol. You spared me from among those going down to the pit. In other words, going down to destruction. God saved David like he did not do a bunch of other people because David had arrogance and pride. Leaders, we need to remember that. Your arrogance and your pride affect a lot of people. So you need to pay attention to the drift of your soul. That's coming to a book near you. Sing to the Lord, you faithful ones, and praise his holy name. For his anger lasts only a moment, but his favor a lifetime. Weeping may stay overnight, but there's joy in the morning. And what David is saying, that our mourning, the brevity of our grief is overwhelmed by the presence of God. The mourning resembled the faithfulness and the renewal of God, and David was talking about that. When I was secure, I said, I will never be shaken. You, Lord, when you showed your favor, you made me stand like a strong mountain. When you hid your face, I was terrified, and I called to you. I sought favor from my Lord. What gain is there in my death if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you? Will it proclaim your truth? Lord, listen and be gracious to me. Lord, be my helper. And David's realizing in his humility that in security he's unshakable, but in security, when he's stupid, that brings life problems. Then he concludes this, you turn my lament into dancing, you remove my sackcloth and clothe me with gladness, so I can sing to you and not be silent. Lord my God, I will praise you forever. Now, God forgives, he does that. God restores, and there's joy in his mercy. Now, even when we experience a calamity because of our disobedience, God is faithful to take our mess and make it his message, to take our misery and make it his ministry through us. So we have to remember the faithfulness of God. David created a national crisis by his arrogance, but God produced a national blessing because of his faithfulness. God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. David humbled himself and found the favor of God. What do you need to do? What do I need to do? I need to trust in the Lord, the one who lifts me out of the pit, who sets me firm in security like the unshakable mountains. I hope this has helped.